Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and professional writing needs. Momentarily, I will be joined by Kiné to discuss managing money-related emotions. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits, as well as high-net-worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at info@pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Kiné, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
It is my pleasure. Please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Absolutely. I am Kiné Corder, the leading national certified counselor specializing in performance and financial therapy, typically for athletes. And I specialize in talking about money emotions, specifically those that keep you from reaching peak performance and block your full financial potential. So I've worked primarily with athletes, but I also work with what I call trusted advisors. And those are the people that the athlete works with. So that could be an agent, that could be a financial advisor, that could be a CPA or a fitness professional, but the ones that the athletes trust. And what I find is that those trusted advisors sometimes have a hard time getting people to stick to their goals because of the money emotions. They're not able to manage the money emotions, so they're not able to manage the client.
Sounds like you're a member of the team.
Yes, exactly.
Would you say that you're the project manager?
That's a great way to look at it. I've not said that before, but that is a great way to look at it. And another way too is almost as if the coach, because the way that I see it is that all the players are on the field. I'm usually the one a little bit in the background, kind of screaming, like, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And in the client's ear, while everybody is making the moves and strategically moving the pieces around on the field.
I intentionally didn't want to use the word coach since you said you were working with
a therapist.
I didn't want to confuse the two. But
I know.
want to talk about something that you wrote in your, it's in the bio, which will be online. You wrote that you run a mental health company.
Yes.
And that your members, so your clients, receive 2 years of therapy in just 3 days.
Exactly.
So your program lasts for 3 days?
Yes. One of our programs is a 3-day program. We do a 3-day private first class retreat. So it's the practitioners and the client. There is no other client but one. And for that time, we completely pour into that one client. Now, we call them members because it is a membership. And once they finish the 3-day retreat, they don't have to go away. We're still available to them in the event that they have another mental injury. Now, the reason why we do this 3-day retreat is because a lot of our clients or members are suffering from a physical or mental injury. Usually, if there is a physical injury, there has been a mental injury connected to it. And our job is to release the mental injury so that they can completely heal from the physical injury.
Let's start at the beginning. What are money emotions?
Money emotions are the emotions that block or get in the way of you creating your full financial potential. Now, we say that there are 4 common. In our research, we find that there are 4 common or 4 categories of money emotions, and that's fear-based emotions, lack-based emotions, lonely-based emotions, and then, oh no, why the lust-based emotion. I was like, I don't know where the fourth one just went, but lust-based emotions, which are really important ones. And the ones that most people are probably familiar with are the lust-based emotions.
So Lust-based emotions, meaning that you don't have enough money to give your significant other what they want.
Lust-based emotions, meaning that it is just like this burning desire inside of you to have more and more and more and more, and you can't tell yourself no. And I work with a lot of financial professionals, and that's the one that they typically have money. Our members have money. So the fear-based emotions are not the ones we see the most. The lack-based emotions are not the ones we see the most, but the lust-based emotions, they have money, they just cannot stop spending it.
Well, that's what happens to a lot of people, as I understand it. I haven't had the fortune or misfortune for this to happen to me, but when somebody wins the lottery,
Yes, sudden
the
wealth
money is
syndrome.
gone in no time flat.
Exactly, because the emotions didn't change. The financial situation changed, but their emotions didn't change. And they didn't manage their emotions, so they didn't manage the money.
I've always thought of it this way. They were irresponsible enough to throw their money away on a lottery ticket, or they knew that the odds were better that they'd be struck by lightning than that they would win. And then when they nevertheless won, they had the same irresponsible approach to their money.
It's one way to look at it, but also keep in mind that this happens even if you inherit a certain amount of money. It's just the windfall. It's sudden wealth. Whenever you have the sudden wealth, lottery is just the one that people talk about the most. But I see this often. Even my new money, athletes, they don't win the lottery in the way they do, right? The
The way they
draft.
do.
Exactly. But that irresponsibility doesn't go away. And it comes from 0 to 7 years old. They were programmed to believe certain things about money. In this case, programmed to believe that spending money was more important than holding on to it, keeping it. And so that plays out in their lives, even though they're no longer 7 years old or 5 years old, they're making decisions like a 5-year-old.
Now, I've used to be a fundraiser, and I dealt with individuals who inherited wealth.
Mm.
And there was no rhyme or reason. There was no, in some cases, they were spending like crazy because
Mhm.
mommy or daddy was no longer around to stop them. Or they were extremely protective of the money because they saw it as their parents' legacy and their
Yeah.
responsibility to protect it. So there was no one attitude towards all of a sudden becoming wealthy from an inheritance,
Yeah.
regardless of the relationship with the father or with the parent, if they liked them or if they didn't like them.
Yeah.
Which can also, because in one case, I'll never forget it, this individual, I'll use that word, said in front of a group of people, when my father died, I was sad, but I got a lot of money out of it. And
Mm.
jaws just dropped. And then because I was the professional on scene, a few of the members came over to me and said, "Get rid of this guy. We don't want to see him again." So I got rid of him. Not
Mm.
the illegal way, but he did not return.
Oh,
Although we
wow.
weren't, let's put it this way, although we were in New Jersey, he did not join Jimmy Hoffa in what's it, at oh gee, it's right over here. The stadium where the Giants and the Mets and the
Oh,
play. Doesn't matter, not important.
yes, I forget that field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's big. But anyway, you you were talking before about a mental injury that goes with
Mm.
a physical injury. Now, anytime anybody is physically injured, it does something to their psyche, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a mental injury. It's just a normal reaction. They're in pain, they're scared, And then as the physical injury becomes something they're used to, they can get over it. Now, I'm talking here about breaking a leg, not losing a leg.
Yeah.
So in sports, you're going to have a broken bone. You may not have something, you can have something that's going to end your career, but not all injuries are career ending.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a bit of a misconception. I think that's my life's work, right? People do not put enough emphasis on the mental injury. Many times, let's say it is a broken leg, especially if it's a athlete, but even a normal person believes that that thing can happen again. I'm working with a client right now who's not an athlete, and their arm was almost severed. And they keep playing it over and over, like, why didn't I do something different? Because this happened in a car accident. So why didn't I do something different? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do this? That's the mental injury that plays. Also being afraid to drive again. Also being distrusting of people because there was somebody in front of them that stopped and slammed on brakes, and then they reacted to that. So there's a lot of different injury options in there. Not everybody is going to react the same way. Some people will say, oh, that happened and I'm over it. Hopefully it never happens again. But if it does happen again, it's likely because they did not overcome that mental injury that they just thought they did. People do a really good job suppressing than they do overcoming.
Well, I had something similar happen to me years ago. I was hit by a car.
Mhm.
I got off the bus. I was crossing the street. It was pitch black. And long story short, I got hit by a car. And some contusions, some bruises. The most serious was a bruised rib. And if that's what a bruised rib feels like, I do not want to know what a broken rib feels like.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who's a psychiatrist, and I called her up and I said, oh, I'm not going to be able to come over. I'm in the emergency room and then I'm going home. Asked me what happened, and I told her, and she said, okay. Once you're walking and ready to go back to work, make sure you get off the bus at the same stop and cross the street at the same crossway. And my response was, you're telling me to get back on the horse? And she said, yes. Now, that was important, and I knew it was important. And I got there, and it took me about 5 minutes to get up the courage to cross the street. I was looking both ways for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Especially to my right, because that's where I was hit.
Okay.
But one and done. I never had the problem again. I don't have a problem now crossing the street.
Yes, but the moral to the story is that you had guidance. Most people don't have that guidance. How lucky are you that somebody intervened as it was an intervention, and she or he told you ahead of time what to do, and you were conscious, you were in the moment. You could have
Just so
gone
that
back.
you understand, this was not I said she was a friend of mine, so it wasn't a therapeutic session.
It doesn't have
And
to
she
be to get
was not
guidance.
and friends who were not psychiatrists said, Bruce, you got to cross at the, I know, get back on the horse. Everybody told me the same thing. And they were right.
Right. But what about the person who has nobody as smart as your friends
I
around them?
understand it. I understand.
Yeah.
My question is that 5 minutes of fear? I admit to it. I don't, nothing to be ashamed of. I admit to it. How do you, you said that one of the factors of money emotions is fear. So I had to talk myself through it. You're being silly. There's no car coming. Cross the street.
Yep.
How does somebody who has financial fear talk themselves down, as you might say?
Well, I like to call it the 3 A's for change. And the first A is awareness. And in that moment, you were aware of the fear. You were like, it's not real. The cars, that is in the past, that is no longer happening. I have healed, right? You were aware that there was fear there. Because of that awareness, that allowed you to be able to have that conversation with yourself.
I went
So,
like this because the ribs still hurt.
oh, okay.
Like I
Yeah,
said, if
that's a
that's a
tough one.
bruise, I don't want to know what a break is.
That's a tough injury.
So the first A, what's the second A?
So the second A is acceptance. Like, I'm accepting that that did happen to me, but it is no longer happening. I am crossing the street. I also accept that it's possible to be hit by a car. However, I am going to look left and right. I'm going to do my due diligence. I accept that, you know, the world is not perfect. So there's a lot of acceptance that has to go into. But I also accept that I've crossed the street thousands of times and didn't get hurt.
Mhm.
So I can do that again.
Mhm.
And then the third one is adjust. So what did I do then that I can take or learn from now? Okay, maybe I didn't look both ways, or maybe it was too dark. I looked, but I didn't see. Maybe I had headphones on, like whatever the situation was, right? In this case, I'm going to adjust those things that would get in the way of me feeling safe. So make those adjustments, and then you have the ability to take the step out of that fear.
What is the connection between you as the mental health professional and the other professionals your client is working with? How do you make sure that you are complementing each other and not contradicting each other?
Yes, this is such a good question because that doesn't always happen. So the number one thing is my job is to bring the vision and mission of the client out. The client already has a vision. And then it's also important that I help the client articulate this vision to everybody else on the team, because this client is the CEO. This is the CEO of the team. This person says, I'm the visionary. This is the vision that I have. This is what I am creating. And everybody else's job is to fill in and make that vision come to life. Now, the other thing that I do is we create a vision that is truly authentic to who the client is. Now, after years of mental injury, physical injury, all the things, you know, past experiences, the vision can be blurred. And so sometimes clients think they have the vision, but it's tainted by other people's visions. Oh, well, this person did this thing. Maybe I should just do that. Or maybe I should just do this, or what society tells me to do. So my work is to make sure that they really are getting to their authentic vision, not one that is tainted by society or community or the next door neighbor. And so once we have that vision solidified, then articulating that to the team. And then each member of the team determines how they add to that vision.
The financial advisor could say, you've invested in A, B, and C. A and B are doing well. Let's get rid of C and try D. Now, C was doing okay. D is a risk. D is new. The client, the CEO, to use your term, could be risk adverse.
Mhm.
But from a fiduciary standpoint, he's got to recommend getting rid of investment C and going with investment D, which is going to cause the client tension, mental
Mhm.
stress. Then you have to come in and do what?
Yes, and this is where we go into the emotions. So when we find that the client is risk averse, we need to find out why they are risk averse. Is it my grandfather did something like that and I don't want to do that because he lost money? Okay, but that was 1922 or whatever, and this is not the same thing. So we need to get to the bottom of why they're risk averse. Sometimes the risk aversion is to replicate something that's not going to, or to refrain from replicating something that's not going to happen again, right? It goes back to crossing the street. I can look both ways this time. And so if we can put a plan in place that mitigates that risk, so the client is able to see how it attaches to the vision, then that allows them to see, okay, this makes sense. This is actually not as risky as I thought it was, because it makes my vision come alive. Also, while we're equating it with the vision, we are also, when I say we are clearing away those old stories given by society, given by caretakers, grandparents, ancestors, whatever, clearing all of those old stories because they don't serve the future vision.
Now, there are three people who logically should be on a team, especially in athletes.
Mhm.
An attorney, an accountant, and a PR person.
Mhm.
And they could all get up and say to we understand your vision, but you can't do this. It may or may not be legal. Let's just say that the player, before it became legal across the United States, wanted to endorse, sponsor, be a spokesperson for a marijuana company in, where was it legal? Colorado.
Mhm. Mhm.
Perfectly legal. No laws being broken, moral, ethical. Everyone can judge for themselves. But career-wise, bad move.
Yeah.
They really want something. Their people are telling them, you can't do this. It's bad for you. They could then revert to a feeling that they had when they were a child, and mommy and daddy said no. So how do you deal with that?
This is my favorite subject. We call this in my work opposing goals. So their affinity for marijuana might be getting in the way of their true vision. And they'll try they'll get really creative as to how it does fit into their vision. But the work is to show them the difference. So my specialty is opposing goals. And everybody has it, not just athletes. We all do this over time that say, the apple is better for you, but the cookie used to make you feel good when you were 5 years old. So you're like, oh, maybe I'll just eat the cookie so I can feel good. But you really need to eat the apple to feel good because you need your fiber, you need the cholesterol to be a certain thing. And you're pulled towards the cookie because it's familiar and the apple is unfamiliar. So when you have opposing goals, the work is to make the unfamiliar familiar. To the athlete, the endorsement for the marijuana brand is probably more familiar. This is something I do on a daily basis. It's something I have fun with. It's recreational. Me and my friends do it, whatever. All the people in my circle like it. They're not looking at their full picture. But when I look at the full picture over here, the vision and what I'm really creating and my legacy. And one of the things we do in the beginning of our work is really get clear on the why, because when willpower fails you, why power has to fuel you. So when we get really clear on the why, that's what we go back to. And it doesn't happen instantly. It could take several conversations. But in our retreat, one of the things that we're doing is clearing away some of those old maladaptive habits that get in the way. So there are three things: maladaptive habits. There are what I call bad company, right? Because bad company can corrupt good character. So that bad company. And then those bad decision-making skills. So those are three of the things that we are addressing in that 3-day retreat, are those things, because without addressing those things, the athlete is reduced to, like you said, the past. I feel like you're trying to control me, like my mother used to do. But we're clearing that. So it doesn't matter what mommy used to do anymore, because that's the past. That is no longer happening. What is happening now is what's important. And it's attached to a vision and a clear why. So it will fuel you to go in that direction. And we make the unfamiliar familiar.
I must correct one thing that you said, which I personally found highly offensive.
Excuse me?
An oatmeal raisin cookie. has fiber and fruit. So whatever emotional issues you have against cookies, you should keep to yourself, madam.
We will agree to disagree.
And I suppose you're saying that potato chips are not vegetables.
Oh my goodness. I'm saying the potato chips are vegetables, but they're overpowered by the amount of grease and salt that has saturated that
Human
vegetable.
beings cannot survive without sodium.
Yes, a very specific amount of sodium, a very specific
And
amount
the
of sugar.
grease usually comes from being fried in vegetable oil. So
Which
since the potato is inundated with vegetable oil, a potato chips is really a vegetable salad.
you are cracking me up because vegetable oil is marketing. It's not the vegetable you're thinking.
Clearly, you do not know what you are talking about. So what I am going to do is I am going to share your contact information. I will, being a gentleman, let me put us back on. Being a gentleman, I will, not with the same amount of sincerity as I welcomed you, I will thank you, despite your culinary bigotry, for coming on. And then I'm going to ask you my final question.
Okay.
Is there anything I did not ask you which you wish I had asked you? And if I had asked you, what would you have said?
I would say loneliness. I would say, especially for not just for athletes, but successful people, the lonely based emotions are probably the hardest ones to heal on your own. Although that's the only response people usually have is to isolate themselves. And so I would say to people who are experiencing the lonely emotions, the fear-based emotions, the lack and the lust, there are probably YouTube videos that you can find, pretty affirmations, all of that stuff. But the lonely based emotions, when you really feel misunderstood or like you just feel by yourself, that's when you really need therapy. And therapy is not about weakness, it's about completeness. And because you don't have a trusted advisor, somebody you can confide in, it makes getting your legacy, the legacy that you can be proud of, to be created. And so if you can just see somebody so that you are no longer lonely, that can take you from where you are to where you want to be and to the top of your game.
Kiné, thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it. This has been enjoyable. I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching. And as always, please stay focused on success.